who are present. We have 5 in the room and we have 3 online on Teams. So we have 8 members present. We are quorate, but the first item of business is to invite the members to appoint a chair for the purposes of today's meeting. If I can invite any proposals. Councillor Hawke.
Could I propose Councillor Maitland as a previous chair of the committee?
Thank you.
Second that.
Thank you. Anyone else otherwise minded? Anyone online? Everyone okay? Thank you. Got Councillor Lennox as well. So we've got 4 online and 5, so we've got 9 members present. Councillor Maitland, if you're happy to take the chair.
Good morning, everybody. Just a reminder that this is now being recorded, and I'll just ask for the sedent. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I'll just run through the sedent if you can indicate attendance, please. We've got apologies from Councillor Barton and Councillor McGee. Councillor Ellen Friel.
I'm here, Cheryl. Thank you.
Councillor Elaine Cowan. Councillor Maureen Mackay.
Present.
Councillor Peter Mabin.
Present. Thank you.
Councillor Claire Maitland.
Here.
Councillor William Lennox.
Here.
Councillor Billy Crawford.
Here.
Councillor Neil Watts.
I'm here.
Apologies from Councillor Drew Filson. Councillor Jennifer Hogg.
I'm here, thanks.
Councillor Elaine Stewart.
I'm here, thanks.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Cheryl. And any declarations of interest from members? Councillor Lennox.
Good morning, Chair. Sorry about that. I'm having slight connectivity problems this morning, but hopefully it's workable. Just in the interest of transparency in relation to item 5 on the agenda, I'd like to make it known that I attended a public meeting organised by the developers, which was held at the Ayrshire Food Hub Crossroads on the 13th of June. I made the meeting organisers aware of my position in planning, and I did contribute to the open discussions. However, I don't consider anything that was said by myself compromised my ability to remain neutral and participate in determining this application. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lennox. David?
We had a discussion about that, and that's fine, and that'll be duly minuted. Through you, Chair, just in terms then of the order of business, if I can advise members, notwithstanding the order on the agenda, we do actually have only the one hearing. That's for item 4. The normal practice is to take those items first by way of a hearing. So the proposal, if members are agreeable, would be to take the items in the following order: item 4, and then item 3, and then item 5 and item 6 in the normal way. So it's just flipping 3 and 4 on the basis of dealing with the hearings first, which is a normal practice. I think it might have been anticipated that both be hearings, but item 3, there is no hearing. The football club training facility, but there is a hearing for the quarry at item 4. So invite members to take item 4 first, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, members, I can't imagine there'd be any objection to that. Okay, so we're just going to go through the objection order for the hearing order, and I propose that 5 minutes for objectors and 15 minutes for applicant, if that's okay. And we won't be too strict with you. Thank you very much.
I'll just confirm, Chair, for the benefit of those participating, that we're just about to proceed to deal with, as I said, the North Drumboy application. In terms of the hearing process, the first stage is for the planning colleagues to present the report, and then for, in this case, the objector to come forward. We are invited forward. What's the lady's name? Mrs. Clayton, Ms. Clayton, when you're invited forward, if you actually come up and join us here at the heady heights of the top table, and you can present your objection from there. Then if there's any questions, members will put them to you before you withdraw, and then it'll be the same in relation to the applicant. They'll come forward and say their piece in support of the application. Members may put questions to them. The hearing will then close, the members will deliberate, etc., and then move to a decision decision on the application. There is a copy of the hearing process. If copies are available, so if you're not sure, but if you're not sure, also just ask. We're not here to make it difficult. So that's the hearing process, and if everybody's happy with that, Chair, back to you to introduce item 4 first.
Thank you. So item number 4 is the planning application number 24/0018/PP. This is the extraction and processing of hard rock. That's the S42 application to vary conditions 1, 10 and 18 of planning permission 17/0163/PP to facilitate the western extension and deepening of North Drumboy Quarry at North Drumboy Quarry, north of Fenwick, East Ayrshire by Ms Rachel Flynn. And it's over to Barry Douglas. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I'll just share my screen with you if you bear with me. Sorry about this. I will just run through some of the plans and the photos of the site just before moving on to the recommendation. So we are in the right one now. So this is the location plan of the site. It is at the northern boundary of the East Ayrshire area, just adjoining the East Renfrewshire boundary. You can see in the part of the plan that's circled in red there. So this is the application site as it was prior to the current quarry being implemented. It is adjacent to the A77 and the M77 motorway, and there was historically an old borrow pit that you can see also on the plan there. I think that was maybe associated with the construction of the motorway. So this is going back to the 2017 planning permission. This was the first phase of the quarry. So this is moving into the first phase, and you'll see the next plan, which shows moving into the second phase. And I'll move on to the proposal for the extension in the following slides, but you'll see the conifer plantation to the the left-hand side of the site, or the southwestern boundary, and that's where the extension would move into. This is the third phase, which is currently being worked at the moment. And yes, the final reserves are of this phase are currently being worked, and the final reserves are being extracted from the southwestern corner of the site. So this application is to vary condition 1 primarily. That's the main change to it, is to vary condition 1 of 2017 planning permission, and seeks to add a 4th phase to the approved phasing plan to extend the quarry to the south, to the northwest, and deepen the floor. This would result in the removal of a coniferous plantation. In compensation for this, would there would be a new woodland would be planted adjacent to the extended extractive area, and this would also include deciduous planting. Overburden from the extension would be placed next to the existing area of overburden from the quarry. As explained in the report, the mineral reserves are nearing exhaustion around 7 years into the 16-year consented lifetime of the quarry. The addition of phase 4 will allow for an estimated 4 to 5 years of production. The report considers matters of amenity impacts, including noise, dust, lighting and vibration, along with impacts on biodiversity, ecology, private water supplies and landscape and visual effects. It's important to note that only the proposed extension and deepening can be considered in those respects, and the impacts of the existing quarry cannot be revisited at this time. No unacceptable additional effects on the matters considered are predicted. The reapplication of conditions relating to noise and dust will be sufficient for mitigation for the extended quarry. With regard to vibration from blasting, condition 21 requires blasting to take place only between 10 AM and 6 PM Monday to Friday. Condition 22 requires blasting to be within acceptable levels at properties out with the application site. The proposed condition 24 requires blasting to be restricted to no more than once every 2 weeks. This is a change to the current condition, which restricts it to every 4 weeks. The applicant suggested this change primarily for operational reasons. It's considered that with the other restrictions on blasting and the addition of condition 23, which requires a blast monitoring scheme to be submitted and implemented, this change to condition 24 could be accepted. The loss of biodiversity as a result of the extension will be mitigated through the provision of compensatory conifer and deciduous planting, as well as further planting during restoration, and this is sufficient to fulfil the requirement to enhance biodiversity. Impacts on private water supplies of nearby properties have been fully considered. All have been assessed as either low or negligible impact. For the abstractions at South Drumboy, North Drumboy, Marramead and Sunnyside Lodge, it is recommended that they be included in a hydrological monitoring scheme, and condition 12 requires the submission of a full hydrological mitigation measures and their implementation. In addition, condition 13 requires the site operator to make good any disruptions to private water supplies in the area if they are attributable to the quarry operations. This requirement is also replicated in the Section 75 obligation. The application also proposes replacement of condition 18, and condition 18 requires the submission of a surface water management plan prior to the commencement of each phase. A drainage scheme was submitted with this application in respect of phase 4, which is acceptable and allows for the replacement of condition 18 with a condition which requires the implementation of the drainage scheme submitted. Just moving on to the next slide, and this slide shows the proposed restoration scheme. This is based on the same principles as approved scheme, the main change being an enlarged and deepened water body. The proposals include for enhanced biodiversity and safety measures to prevent access to the water body and are proposed in the form of fencing and shrubs, which are deterrent type shrubs. Shallower margins are proposed around the edges to prevent sudden deep drop-offs if access is gained, particularly to the northern part of the water body. The restoration bond has been reviewed and amended and has been reviewed for the amended restoration proposals and has been agreed as noted in the report at paragraph 38. This slide just shows the existing car parking area along with the site cabins, wheel wash area and the weighbridge. So they'll all remain in place. And this is quite a useful aerial drone view looking roughly south. You can see the motorway and the A77 in the background. So this was taken in March 2024 with the remaining mineral reserve you can see to the south of the site, and this is further depleted since. The extension would be to the area of the conifers that you can see to the right-hand side of the quarry. And you can also see the group of houses at North Drumboy and Marramead in the background in this location. So those are the closest dwelling houses. And just moving on to some photos of the site. So this is the site entrance. This is taken from the flyover over the motorway that goes to Float Quarry. So none of this would change. The only change would be the conifer plantation that you can see on the right-hand side. So that would be felled, and obviously that would be where the quarry would be extended into, and the compensatory planting would be to the front of this. And this is the existing car parking area and access to the quarry. And the wheel wash, the weighbridge, and site cabins. And this is looking into the final reserves to the south of the site and the area for the extension to the right-hand side where the conifers are. And again, looking towards the extended area, which is, again, the area of conifers, which have been subject to a bit of wind blow. And again, panning around more to the north. And looking from the other side into the extended area, so the boundary of the extractive area would be roughly where the post and wire fence is. And looking back in the other direction. And looking towards the area of overburden that's there at present, which has been planted. Just to conclude, the application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions attached and following the conclusion of a modified Section 75 obligation. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. I'd like to invite the objector to come forward, please. June, thanks.
Good morning, everyone. I'm June Clayton. I live, as you know, just right next to the quarry at North Drumboy. I'm actually speaking for myself and my two neighbours, Mr. and Mrs. Stevenson, who live at Marymead, and also Mr. and Mrs. Lydon, who live at North Drumboy Farm. Mrs. Stevenson's here, but she's not speaking today. I'm just going to speak for us. All three of the families that live at North Drumboy, which you just saw there, is very near to the quarry, rely on a private water supply, which we actually get from aquifers, which is like cracks in the rocks that the water forms in and then it tribbles down. And then eventually makes its way down to our sort of pipe. It's a big sort of pipe way under the ground. Sorry if you know this, I'm just explaining. If people don't. I'm not an expert, but this is how it's been explained to me. So we currently have a bore well, and I said that the aquifers feed it along with other sort of natural water courses, goes down there, and then it comes up to a pump on our pump house via a sort of dry supply pump. It's really just a surface pump, really. It's above the ground. And usually it works fine. This was a concern before when the quarry was first given permission back in 2017, but seven rather. And it was briefly mentioned, yeah, that they would replace it, yeah, accept that. But we've never had any bother. Just so recently, we had an issue and we had to get a borewell specialist out. So got Mr. Kidd from Tech Pumps in Glenrothes, who's a well-known renowned specialist. He's actually got 50 years in the business, and he did a repair basically, and advises that we needed to replace the supply pipe. Now, this supply pipe is more than 8 metres down into the ground, and he noted that we needed to add on at least 8 to 10 inches because the water levels had dropped, which was news to us, obviously, because you don't usually see it, it's underground. And he said it was a probability that it would be down to the blasting, obviously removal of rocks, because that's where the supply is coming down. Worryingly, for us, he also informed me that if the deep blasting at the quarry goes ahead, it has the potential to actually stop our supply completely, which makes sense when you think of the water's coming from rocks and they're going to get taken away. I really would like assurances from the applicant that this deep blasting won't stop or contaminate the supply. Obviously, that's a major thing. We rely very heavily on it with the three families. Again, as I said, you did mention that they would, in a few sentences, replace the borewell. It's not just a case of just popping out and doing one outside. It takes months to do. And what would we do in the meantime if we had no water? We had an interruption for a few days and it was absolutely awful. So goodness knows what it'd be like waiting for a new supply to be made. And there's no access currently for the public water supply. A further concern is when they leave, are they going to leave all this water just sitting? Is there going to be pumps or whatever? Is it going to be like contaminated water? Is it going to go stagnant, which again might wake its way down to our supply? I don't know. I know they show the nice pictures there, but obviously we're concerned if it's going to be sitting there. Along with the safety issues, they've said that they'll, stagger the entrance in and out. But I'm more concerned about what the water's going to do if it's sitting there. Is it going to seep through the water course and come down to us? If it's, if it's not getting any pumps or any attention to it. And my other concern, even more so, says I wasn't aware that they intended to do the increased blasting, is we already feel the vibrations heavily. We feel them and we hear them. To be fair to the quarry people, Dougie, the manager's very good. I nearly had an accident one day. I was leading an animal out and I didn't know. They gave us a 2-hour window and I thought I'll pop them out just now. and it's honestly, I'm not exaggerating, it's like an earthquake, the whole thing shakes and you hear the big bang. It's like having a car crash near you. Of course, it was actually a horse lane at the time. It reared up and bolted. So I did say to Dougie, the foreman, look, this, could you let me know? And he does usually let me know sort of fairly, so I can avoid being near. Because I said the ground shakes and, you know, everything, you can hear the cutlery and the glasses all shaking. Another concern with this as well, I've not been getting any measurements done recently. It's been, gosh, a good year, I think, since I've done it in mine, but Caroline, Mrs. Stevenson rather, who's with me today, is still getting hers. I asked them about a year ago why they were putting sandbags over the monitoring equipment. Sorry, I'm running out of time. No. Basically, they bring a wee machine, it's got springy things on it, and then your dial, and I thought, right, that's how it works. But then the guy, every time they come, they whip out 2 great big sandbags and pop it on top. And I said, does that not dampen down the vibrations? And he went, no, this is normal practice. So I've always been worried about those readings, to be honest, but I don't know anything about it. So I'd quite like someone to explain why they need to put these bags on it. And if it does go ahead, obviously we've already got another quarry across the road that we hear the blast from. If we're going to be getting this every 2 weeks, it's obviously a concern, you know, with the vibration, the noise, and what is it doing to our own foundations and properties if there's, you know, if we can feel it. So I'll just quickly summarise. So really, I just want to know what happens if our, you know, can they give us assurance that the private water supply won't be affected? If they can, and it gets affected or potentially stopped, what are they going to do timescale wise? How are we going to get water? What is their plan for that? Are they going to fill in all these? There's a few dirty sort of pond looking things on about. Is that all going to get filled in when they actually go away? Or what's going to really happen with that? And if it's getting left, how is it not going to go stagnant? And again, as I've just said about the vibrations, it's a real concern when you live there. They're not here today, but I have to say the quarry people are really good. They've actually even helped me when I had an animal in distress years ago. So I can't fault them that way. This is purely about practicality and concerns that we really have about the vibrations in the water. And that's all. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. And we allowed you to go over because you're representing 3 people.
Right,
I
okay,
think- I
thanks
thought that
very
was
much.
only fair. I did not want
trying to get it
interrupt you.
down without waffling.
No, but I thought with 3 people,
Thank you.
that was fine. Okay. So over to you, members. Do you have any questions? Anyone online?
Can I just ask the reason why there's no connection to the main water supply? Is there no main water supply nearby that these houses can't be connected to?
I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that. I'm assuming there isn't a connection.
There's no currently there's no main connection nearby, and that's why for this water supply's been here years. I think the chap before, he's about 70 now, and he had it as a wee boy, so it's always been here. But there's nothing nearby that we could connect into. That would be a dream if we could, but it's not possible just now.
Councillor Hogg?
Is that something that a benefit the company could look at for these householders?
We'll find out in due course when we hear from the applicant, but obviously at the moment it's questions to the objector. But I think the committee will want to hear from the applicant on both points, how they'll protect the water supply and their willingness to give advance notice of the blasting. So not to give any hints, but that may be what members are hopeful about to hear on.
Okay, so that's all. Thank you very much. Thank you. Donald Wilkin for the applicant, please, if you'd like to come forward, and 15 minutes. Thank you. Okay, if you'd just like to begin, thank you. 15 minutes.
Right, thank you. Firstly, thanks for the presentation from the Planning Service and also the committee report, which I think is quite detailed and covers all the main points. My name is Donald Wilkins. I work for Breeden Trading Limited. Breeden is a market-leading construction material supplier in the UK and Ireland. And within Scotland, we operate a network of quarries, asphalt plants, ready-mix concrete plants, and employ around about 800 people. I'm just going to quickly mention the sort of importance of the mineral industry, and then I'll touch on the particular issues that are raised by Ms. Clayton. So the mineral extraction industry is an essential element of the building and construction industry and also the wider economy. All forms of construction activities are reliant on aggregates, house building, road construction, schools, hospitals, commercial and leisure facilities. A key outcome of policy 33 of MPF4 relating to minerals is that sufficient resources are available to meet industry demands and make an essential contribution to the economy. NPF4 supports a land bank of construction aggregates. So there's a bank of permitted reserves available to support the construction industry. Minerals can only be worked where they're found. So the location of quarries is very much dictated by the geology above all else. Nevertheless, we need to identify deposits of mineral close to market areas to minimise environmental impacts associated with transportation. Breeden operate both hard rock quarries within East Ayrshire, North Drumboy and also Sorn. North Drumboy commenced in 2018. And quarries from the output from the quarries very much determined by demand. We currently do between 200 and 300,000 tonnes per annum from the quarry. As it currently stands, reserves at the quarry are running low, and based on current demand, we're expecting to be out of the permitted reserves within 6 to 12 months. So this proposal is seeking to replenish those reserves to allow us to continue to operate. Barry's already covered the main points in terms of the proposal, but I'll just emphasise a couple of points. Firstly, the extension and deepening is located wholly within the red line boundary of the existing site that's been consented. The working of the mineral underneath the conifers was in fact previously granted planning permission. It was a 2003 application that wasn't actually determined until 2017. However, that scheme was changed slightly in 2017, and we implemented something slightly differently. The conifer plantation is now mature. It's suffered wind blow, and it needs to be harvested soon. So those trees need to come out, whether or not we progress with this mineral application or not. They will be harvested within the next sort of 12 to 24 months. The proposal involves both the widening and the deepening of the quarry. Now, the deepening of the quarry isn't feasible unless we widen. There's geotechnical considerations when we design quarry benches. So we need the increased quarry footprint to allow us to go deeper. The quarry is regularly monitored. We undertake routine noise, dust, vibration, water monitoring, and that monitoring data is passed to the council's quarry advisors inside FARA, which is inspected on an annual basis, and our sort of monitoring report's been prepared. So I'll now turn to the two issues that have been raised in terms of vibration and private water supplies. So in relation to blasting, so what we do is we identify a blast panel, we drill it to create holes. We fill those holes with explosives and detonate them. And what that does is that fractures down the rock sufficiently to allow us to feed it through crushing equipment and create various quarry products. So in relation to blast vibration, PAN 50, Planning Advice Note 50, recommends that limits are applied in terms of blast vibration, and identifies a range of between 6 and 10 millimetres per second as being the kind of upper limit that quarry operators should be expected to comply with. Now, those limits don't necessarily relate to any safety implications. They relate specifically to amenity. So in terms of, safety, you might be talking 15 millimetres per second would be somewhere where you'd be looking at cosmetic damage being occurred to the house. So the 6 to 10 millimetres per second is much lower than that. And indeed, the current permission and the recommended conditions in relation to blast vibration imposes the lower range, which is 6 millimetres per second. So we monitor every blast at the quarry, and the monitoring results are provided to the planning officers to check in terms of compliance. We haven't had any instances where we've exceeded the 6 millimetres per second limit to date. In relation to the point that was raised by the objector with the sandbags, so when we bring in a monitoring equipment, we place that on a reasonably large solid surface, ideally a big concrete pad, and then you add the sandbags to it to ensure that it's sitting down and in place, and isn't affected by anything like a passing car or something like that. So that's standard practice. Everyone who monitors blasts will use sandbags to weigh down the equipment. So just in summary on vibration, the vibration limits set for the quarry are at the lower end of the recommended range. Blasting's undertaken approximately once per month. I think our consent currently limits us to once every 4 weeks. Now, we have applied or suggested that the condition relating to the 4 weeks is amended to 2 weeks. That's not because we're proposing any additional output from the quarry. It's more to do with we're now getting to the point where we're clearing out the awkward shaped areas of the quarry. So our blasts are likely to be smaller in terms of size, but potentially to keep that output more regular. So it would really just give us more flexibility. I'm not saying that the output would increase, and certainly if we blasted more often, there would be smaller blasts. So yeah, just to really finish up on that point then, moving on to private water supplies. So the development would involve dewatering of the quarry. So the quarry works a mineral where there is an active water aquifer which flows through the ground, and in order for us to deepen it, we need to remove the water. And what that will do will create a zone of influence around the quarry. So we'll suppress the water levels, and those water levels will be suppressed within the quarry and within a certain area around the quarry. Now that certain area has been quantified by our hydrogeologist, which is all set out in the submitted report. So we've collected data from a network of boreholes we have around the quarry itself. We've identified that the groundwater is actually, it's got quite a high fluctuation rate. So during drier summer months, the water level will be naturally low. During wetter winter months, that water level will increase, and that's a natural fluctuation. And it fluctuates by, we think, around about 10 metres from 214 metres AOD to 224. So our proposals is to go down to a 201 level and suppress that water level down to 201. So that's suppressing the water level by approximately 13 metres below its natural range. And what that means is there'll be a zone of influence that dewatering will cause. And the zone of influence will really depend on how transient that aquifer is. Now, the hydrogeologist has looked at the geology and all the water monitoring data and has estimated that that zone of influence would be around about 145 metres. Could be slightly more, could be slightly less, but that's the estimate. And on that basis, we don't think there'll be any impact on any private water supplies within the area. I think the supply that supplies North Trumboy, Manamead and Sunnyside Cottages is about 300 metres from the quarry at its closest point. Nevertheless, we have proposed, there is one other point I should mention, is that like rivers, groundwater flows at a gradient. So it sits at a gradient, it will flow from one point and it will get lower and lower. Now the gradient of the groundwater, which has been determined by our boreholes, is actually flowing from the quarry in a northwesterly direction, which means the groundwater flow within the area is flowing away from these private water supplies as opposed to towards it. And what that means is that there may still be a zone of influence that extends towards the Manamead North Trumboy private water supply, but it won't be as extensive as down gradient. So that's quite an important point in terms of considering the level of effect. So based on our worst case scenario, we expect there to be a very minor change in water level at the Manamead private water supply. That's absolute worst case. In actual fact, we're expecting no impact at all. So we have proposed some mitigation. And so we've got 300 metres between the quarry and the properties. What we're proposing to do is put a borehole halfway between the two. And that borehole will monitor any fluctuation in terms of groundwater in between the two properties and will effectively alert us of any potential change out with the site boundary. And I think the point was raised by the objector in relation to what will require us to implement these mitigation measures. Well, I think the planning conditions are set out quite clearly that not only do we need to implement mitigation measures and monitoring measures, but we also need to supply alternative water supply if it was required. And we're absolutely happy with that because we are confident there'll be very little or absolutely no impact on the supply. So just to conclude, the construction of aggregates are very important to the national economy. None of the development that passes through this committee would happen if we didn't have the construction aggregates available. Economically viable deposits located close to market areas is really what we need to ensure that there's high quality materials supplied directly into the markets. And North Trumboy sort of ticks both those boxes. The reserves at the quarry are nearing exhaustion and do require to be replenished. The quarry's got an excellent track record in terms of environmental compliance. The issues that have been identified by the objector this morning, I believe, can be fully addressed through some monitoring. I mean, in terms of blasting, we haven't exceeded the limit to date. The limit is at the lower end of the spectrum, and we're confident that will continue. So following a wide consultation, there's been no objections from statutory consultees, environmental health, SEPA, who are interested in these issues. Planning officers' reports found the proposal to comply with development plan policy. So we believe that planning permission should be granted. Thank you very much, and happy to answer questions.
Okay, so over to members. Do we have any questions?
Chair, I have a comment, not a question.
Sure.
This is in my ward, and I do know that the local community have a very good relationship with this company. And I believe even the lady who spoke first agrees with that. And he seems to have addressed her concerns. I can only hope that that helps satisfy.
Thank you, councillor. I'd just like to note that the objector's three main concerns were what were the plans for the water, what was the restoration going to look like, and what were the vibrations. Now, I feel these have been answered, and she's looking for reassurance, as are all the neighbours. Can I ask if the objector is happy with the reassurance? I know it's going out with.
You're the chair. Strictly speaking, we do have a hearing process, but I think given that the focus of the committee is to try and approve developments, having mitigated the potential impact, then if that's what we're trying to achieve, there's maybe no harm in just trying to seek assurance or confirmation that that assurance is there. Maybe just before we do, apologies if I missed it, but I think one of the only point that maybe wasn't fully clarified was around at the end what will be left. Reference was made to some of the puddles or ponds of water, or bits of water on the ground just now in terms of the restoration element. And apologies if I did miss it, if you did touch on that, if you can maybe just clarify that. And as you touched on, again, there's a question, but there are conditions that would, as you acknowledged, would require you, if the worst case scenario is worse than you're expected, and if there were interference with any of the water supplies, there is that obligation on the company to obviously repair and reinstate the supply. But the question that was asked was, and you touched on it, in terms of an interim period, if it takes a period of time to fix a broken supply, what would the interim arrangement be in terms of actually getting water to any affected property? And maybe just clarifying around what the intention would be for the groundwater that was referred, not the groundwater, the water on the ground that was referred to, in terms of where that would fit in the final restoration at the end of operations.
I think the restoration plan was shown as part of the planning services presentation. So as we deepen the quarry, we will we plan to dewater the quarry, which means we're artificially suppressing the groundwater level for a period of time. We're physically pumping the water out of the void. When we come to finish quarry extraction operations, those pumps will be turned off and removed. And what will happen is that aquifer will just naturally raise the water level back up. So the water level will effectively rebound to the kind of 214, 224 level. You know, again, it will fluctuate in terms of height. I think that plan shows it as sort of 216, which is, I think, what we think will be the kind of rough sort of mean level, but it will go up and down. I'm not aware of any other sort of ponds or puddles out with the quarry void that are present on site. So I think that plan's a good representation of what will be left. I mean, in terms of stagnation, the ground, the water body will be located within the aquifer. The aquifer is relatively mobile. The water will continue to flow into that water body from the groundwater and back out of it. And as I say, it heads kind of in a northwesterly direction towards the Erne water. So I don't think there's any concern about water stagnating. If this is maybe a different rock type where there was very little water flow through the rock, then perhaps, you could say, that there would be more of a concern. But the aquifer here is relatively mobile, so it would effectively just replenish and discharge through the ground as it currently does. In terms of in terms of impact, so we're not expecting any impact on this private water supply. If we were to turn the pumps off, for example, that any impact that was experienced would be gone. In terms of an interim measure, we can provide water in a number of different ways. You can provide cubed water, in large quantities in that way. So there are alternative arrangements that can be made, but as I say, we don't think they would be needed. The other alternative is the borehole is deepened. I mean, my understanding was that borehole was 37 metres deep. And maybe you may correct me if I'm wrong, but effectively so the zone of influence will only extend so far, and the further away you get from the quarry, the zone of the influence or the drawdown on that water will decrease. So by the time you get out, 300 metres, even in worst case scenario, you're talking about maybe a drop in water level of about a metre in terms of the ground. So the water's still going to be there. It's just going to be slightly lower. So providing there's enough depth in the well, we can, that water can still be available, even during the worst case.
Thank you. Councillor Lennox wants to come in online.
Thanks, Chair. I think the applicant may just actually have addressed the question I was going to ask in terms of should something, I know there's no anticipation that anything is likely to happen to the private water supply, but in the eventuality that something did, would Breedon be prepared to provide supplies of bottled water so that there was no interruption to the supply of water for these properties?
Yes, I mean, if we were to have an impact on the water supply, then absolutely we'd provide an alternative to supply that's suitable for their means. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lennox. Members, any more questions? Councillor Maben.
Thank you, Chair. And in terms of restoration, can you give us an idea of the dimensions this pond is going to be left behind? How deep and how long and wide?
I think from memory, the water body itself is probably about 4 hectares in size, although I would need to double check that. The depth would be approximately, I think it's about 20 metres in terms of depth, but as I say, it would vary seasonally, so it would be deeper during the winter and shallower during the summer. But I think in the region 20 metres. What we have proposed is round the margins, we've proposed restoration blasting, and what that will do, rather than having, as a planning officer said, rather than having a steep drop off where there would be a quarry bench, we would blast that down so there's shallow margins right round the quarry, the water body itself. And that means, if people would decide to go swimming, for example, there's easy easy way to climb back out again, because what we don't want to do is create a sort of health and safety hazard. Plus, I mean, the shallow margins tends to be best for biodiversity, so we tend to try and maximise that as we exit a site.
Thank you, Councillor Maben.
So what's the kind of length of that site there? Are we talking about 1 kilometre long?
The length is probably about 300 metres. I'm guessing, but it's not 1 kilometre. I mean, if you the property is located to the south of us, is about 300 metres from us. So yeah, it's probably about 300 metres by about 100 metres wide.
Thank you, Chair.
So just to confirm and clarify that the principle of the void is included and covered by the existing consent. It's already agreed as part of the original approved restoration plan, but I was just checking there, the bottom line effect of these proposals would be it may be slightly deeper and slightly longer, but marginally compared to what's already consented. So in itself, it's not a consequential impact to the variation. It sits within the original consent.
Members, any more questions, clarifications? Okay, if you could just give me 1 second, please. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of Chair's prerogative here, and I want to ask, do you feel reassured over what you've heard today? Would you like to come forward again? Is that okay? Yep, it's.
Unless the mic's not working, innit?
Oh, I'm sorry, the mics aren't working in the back row. I've just been informed we're having technical times.
Slightly, but it's not a case. We the three families and there's children as well in the house at Norton Boy family house that you didn't address. You actually didn't get any information about this planning application actually. It's not just a case of water. We need water for the toilet, for washing, for everything. It's not just a case of potting a couple of bottled waters. It would be quite an operation, as you'll agree, to provide 3 full houses with water, potentially for a few months until a proper supply was established. So it is, and yes, I'm reassured in a way. You're talking about all these things, but again, that's your job to do that, to be reassuring. However, we were quite shocked actually when we noticed that our water level had dropped and over the last 10 years, because that's the last time we had our well serviced. So it was a shock. That's the first time in 70 years of the well being there that there was a deficit in the water. It's been addressed with the new pipe just now, but it is always a concern. So yes and no, I suppose. It's very interesting to hear it. But again, your job is to propose that for the applicant. So I'm still a bit concerned. And when I speak to the expert that I spoke to, he said quite rightly so, you should be concerned because in the past there has been other properties affected. So not really. I'm sorry, I'm not. And I'm not really assured by all these lovely things about the vibrations. I can tell you, if I'm standing outside my house, when that goes off, it's bang, and the whole ground shakes. All your cutlery, everything shakes, and that's so. And I do appreciate they've got a job to do, but the initial planning, we thought that the 3 neighbours all thought was it's going to be over within a certain time, and now this is like, it's so disappointing. It could potentially be more. So, and again, it is the worry. And we had a short disruption to water supply for a few days to be able to get a pipe fix. It was awful. You can't flush your toilet. You can't take a drink at the tap. So it's so natural to go and turn the taps in. You can't do that. So if that was only for a few days till we got, well, it was actually an outflow pipe. It was disrupted and upset the whole thing. Once that was fixed, great, you forget about it. But when even if a day or so without water is bad enough, but this would be a long time. So thank you.
Right, thank you, Ms. Clayton. Okay, members, over to you. Any further questions? Councillor Hogg?
Just to hark back, is there any reason that the company couldn't supply them to the main water? Is there something that's been looked at as a kind of benefit, me seeing your so close proximity to these houses?
It's not being looked at primarily because we don't think we'll have any impact on their private water supplies. I don't think it would be something that we would want to do because we know that there's a lot of private water supplies within the area. So presumably the mains infrastructure is some distance away. It's not something we've looked at. It's unlikely, I think, that anything will be needed. As I say, I mean, just again to reiterate, the worst case that we expect is a slight lowering of the groundwater at this property. We're not expecting it, but it's the worst case. We think there's sufficient depth in the borehole that you would just continue to draw water in the normal way. The pump would just be sitting a metre lower. I mean, in terms of a long-term fix, if we were to have a significant impact, which I'm sure we won't, you would probably just put a deeper borehole in and capture the aquifer at a lower level. But because of the distance between the water supply and our operations, the geology that we're expecting any impact on this.
Okay, thank you. If there's no more, we'll draw the hearing to a close. Pardon? I can't see in this. Oh, sorry, couldn't see you there. Councillor Crawford.
Just to say, Chair, that the conditions have got the water covered.
Planning colleagues to sum up now.
Okay, Barry, if you can summarise, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just in relation to there was a comment about the length of time, and the quarry has a permission just now for 16 years, and they're only 7 years into that, and they're already exhausting supplies. So, condition 2 of the current planning permission, we're proposing to change that to a further 9 years, so that it gives a total of 16 years. So we're not proposing a longer planning permission for this quarry. In relation to the private water supplies, I think that's a lot of that's obviously been drawn out between the two parties. Condition 12 is a condition which requires the full hydrological mitigation measures to be submitted to and approved in writing by the planning authority. So that'll include the monitoring that Breeden are talking about in relation to the private water supplies. Condition 13 requires that in the event that any property in the area suffers from interruption to its water supply, or there are qualitative or quantitative problems with the supply that are attributable to the operations at North Drumboy Quarry, then the applicant or site operator shall make good that water supply by whatever means are agreeable to the Council's Environmental Health Service, and those details shall be agreed in writing by the planning authority. So I think, given what we've got in the hydrological and hydrogeological report, the mitigation measures that are proposed, and the fact that it's a fairly small extension to the quarry, and the deepening as well, obviously, which does have an impact. But overall, we don't consider with those mitigation measures that there'll be an unacceptable impact. In relation to vibration, Breeden currently do monitor the vibration levels at properties. We don't have a condition at present which requires the monitoring scheme and the submission of results, although they do that. But the condition that we're proposing now will require them to supply the results to us. The effects that are probably being experienced will be air overpressure rather than vibration, I would expect, because the results are coming below the levels are set, or the necessary levels. Other than that, I don't think there's much else. In relation to the two-weekly frequency of blasting, as explained by the applicant, it's not that they're going to be blasting every 2 weeks. It's to allow them flexibility in that. That is a suggested amendment to a condition and not an absolute necessity, but we're recommending that is changed to the 2 weekly to allow flexibility for the reasons that are explained by the applicant. That's all from me. Thanks.
Thank you. And your conditions, and there's 44 of them, are laid out from page 110 onwards. Committee, are we ready to come to decision? Would anyone like to propose? Councillor Frail.
I'm happy.
Councillor Frail, is that a proposal? Sorry, yes. Thank you, Ellen. Councillor Maven.
I'm happy to second the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. And we'll go on to item. You want to summarize?
We confirm then, for the benefit of those present, that application has been determined subject to the conditions as set out in the annex to the report. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, and thank you for your indulgence. Okay, committee, we're on to item 3 now. We changed the order, and it's the planning application number 23/0545/PP, and it's change of use of agricultural land and formation of new football training facility, including new clubhouse, spectator stand, football pitches with associated access and parking at land adjacent to Struthers Farm, bound by London Road to North Kilmarnock, London Road. Kilmarnock East Ayrshire by Billy Bowie, special projects, and it begins on page 5. Thank you. And it's Fiona Finlay. Okay, so there
Thank
you
you,
are,
Chair.
Fiona.
Good
Thank you.
morning, everybody. The application before you seeks planning permission to erect the training facility, spectator stand, pitches, car parking with a new access and landscaping on land at London Road, currently agricultural land, out with the Kilmarnock settlement boundary. Details of the proposal are in your report starting at paragraph 10. The application is a major development and the applicant has undertaken the required pre-application consultation prior to lodging this application. If you can just turn to your screens, members, I'll run through some slides for you, and Craig is going to run through some site photographs that he took as the case officer. So the first slide that we have here just shows the application site in relation to London Road. You can see London Road here as the B7073. You can see the council offices where we are just now, members, so it's just along the road from where we are. You can see the railway line here, and you can also see the railway line along to the right-hand side of the site, and we can see the A77 as well. And you can see the river along the southern part of the site with references to properties round about. We now have the application site as detailed on the applicant's plans. We have London Road at the very top of the site at the north. As you come in, there is the access lane that takes you down to the Struthers Kennels property, and there is an industrial yard in here, members, to the left-hand side of the slide here where my cursor is. If you look at the very top of the slide, members, you'll see the access road that takes you into the application site so that the applicant is not intending to use the current access road. And you'll see that takes you into a car park in the north area. To the right of that, we have a 9-a-side pitch. I'll show you some visuals in a little minute, members, that will give you a bit more of a context. But at the moment, we have the 9-a-side pitch here. We have the training facility building here, members, with in facilities inside, such as changing facilities, canteen facilities, office facilities, etc., meeting rooms and what have you. We have the two full-size pitches down here with a stand in between, which focuses its attention onto this pitch over here where my cursor is, and hopefully you can see that okay. This little building over here, members, is the greenkeeper shed, which is referenced to in the report as well. And down to the southern part of the site, you can see that we have a further overflow car park that's referred to in the report as well. Just in a little bit more detail, members, you can see down here, just effectively just a bit closer in, to be honest, you can see the car parking space at the north, the training facility building, the pitches and the stand and the southern car park there. These are just the architectural details. I do have actually some visual images which are maybe give you a better context, etc., in just a minute or two, but these are just the plans that have come in for the training facility. These are the context visuals for you, members, so that you can see the design of the training facility itself. You'll see the use of stone, the use of zinc, use of clad. You'll see the windows and doors arrangement, etc. You'll see the car park over here, and that's about that, members, for you. Here's the stand, and you can see that the sort of architectural plans and the stand detailing here. You can see that the materials carry through from the training facility to the stand. This is just an image across the site, members, for you, which we thought actually showed you quite good context. The site is sloping the further you get towards sort of boundary up here where my cursor is, and hopefully you can see it's a bit staccato on the screen there. But you can see where the terracing is proposed to level out, and you can see the extent of landscaping that's intended to be planted round about and within the site. You'll see obviously the car park, the training facility, down towards the two full-size pitches, the southern car park, and that's the internal access lane. And this is the existing lane just to the very, very right of the drawing, members. And you'll see the hedgerow that's already there that's intended to be retained and augmented if this application gets approval. Last slide, I think, from me before Craig introduces the photographs for you. Just to clarify and confirm, members, this is the local development plan. Apologies, it's a wee bit of a blurry plan. Didn't realise it was going to come up quite so blurry on screen. But you can see just the site in here. It is just out with the sort of Kilmarnock settlement boundary was identified by that black line, just in the rural development plan, in the local development plan too. But it's just to clarify that position for you, members. So I'm going to switch my mic off for a couple of minutes, pass over to Craig. I'll do my job as.
Thank you. The photos take a logical order from north to south, and then the last few taken from London Road to give some perspectives. So the first photo is taken at the northwest corner of the site. You can see the existing field access, and this will be where essentially where the access to the new facility will be. You've got the existing mature trees along the London Road frontage. London Road's to the left of the photo. And you can see the bank of trees in the distance along the eastern boundary where the railway line is. The next photo is in the same, essentially standing in the same position, looking down the access road. You can see the application sites to the left. You can see the mature hedgerow along the access road. Struthers Farm is in the distance at the end of that access. Again, essentially the same position from that field access gate looking southward into the application site. It gives you an idea of the sloping nature and the current status of the site for basically it's grazing at the moment. The bank of trees in the distance along the southern boundary is adjacent to the River Irvine. The next photo is taken a bit further down the access lane. That's the scaffold storage business adjacent to the site. The site's on the left. The next photo is taken more centrally from the site, looking up to the northeast. You can see the bank of trees that go along London Road and along the railway embankment. You can just see the top right corner, the houses of Glen Doone, I believe. The next photo, again from the same position, centrally in the site, just looking east. Gives you an idea of the nature of the site and the sloping nature. Same position, looking southward. Again, this is the flatter part of the site where the 11 aside pitches will be sited, which is, obviously the better location given the nature of the site. Same position, looking back up the access road towards London Road. You've got the scaffolding business entrance there on the left and the site's on the right. This photo is taken from the southern part of the access road near Struthers Farm. You can see the buildings of Struthers Farm, the kennel building, and the mature landscaping around Struthers. This is taken from the same position, looking back up the access road northward towards London Road in the distance. This is from the same position, just giving an example of the sloping nature and the character of the site. Again, swinging around to the east, facing eastward. And this is facing northeast up the site. You can get an idea of the sloping nature from this photo. This is back up at the top of the site, looking eastward along London Road toward Crooked Home. You can see there is pedestrian infrastructure. That's the railway bridge, and you've got the mature planting along London Road. This is directly opposite the junction that's showing the access into the fuel depot on the north of London Road. Swinging further along London Road to the west, just giving an idea of the location. There's pedestrian accesses looking west along London Road. Again, this is opposite the junction, showing that field access where the access to the site will be taken. Again, further up London Road, giving an idea of the mature planting along London Road. You can just see the access there in the site. This is taken a bit west along London Road, looking back towards the site. You can see the railway bridge there in the distance. And this photo is taken from London Road on the bridge with the A77 below. You can see the mature planting along the A77, and it shows glimpses of the site through the trees. And again, from the same spot, you can see glimpses of the site, but it demonstrates the quite mature trees along the A77 and London Road, which would help screening. But thank you. That's all the photos. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Craig. Just to confirm, members, hopefully that's given you a good idea of the site, but also we had the opportunity to attend a site visit this week, and members did so as well, so they should be well aware of the physical characteristics of the site. We have no objections from statutory consultees, including ARA, Environmental Health, SEPA, ARA Flooding and Network Rail, given the proximity of the railway line, Sport Scotland and WOSAS. All matters raised have either been addressed or can be addressed by planning condition if consent is approved. We do have 72 objections and 19 representations in support of the proposal were received. In regard to objections, we've got a total of 67 members of the public submitting a pro forma letter. Objections have also been received under the following summary headings, although this is more explained in detail in your report. We have concerns about the lack of compliance with the development plan, the rural location of the site, traffic and pedestrian safety matters, public transport, sustainable travel, amenity, environmental impacts, flooding, litter and vermin. There's applicant supporting information and the pre-application process concerns, impacts on the right-of-way and impact on Struthers Kennels itself. We have letters of support that have been lodged under the following sort of brief headings. The need of the facility for Kilmarnock Football Club to grow and increase the work done for the community with local investment and jobs. The feature will enhance the local area and the health and well-being of residents. All teams associated with the club will have a dedicated facility to drive standards up across the whole club to be of benefit to Kilmarnock. The site being located far enough away from the town centre not to cause impacts on traffic, but being also local enough for people to watch games, and the top level training facility would bring good things to the local community and a better chance for local youngsters to make it in a pro game. Some points have also been raised right above paragraph 45 in your report that are non-material planning considerations, and we've identified those for you. Points of objection and support have been summarised in your report. Sections 25 and 37(2) of the Town and Country Planning Scotland Act require that planning applications be determined in accordance with the development plan, unless material considerations indicate otherwise. And as members are aware, the development plan comprises East Ayrshire Local Development Plan 2 and MPF 4. When assessed against the policy framework, the application is in accordance with the relevant policies, and in particular, with particular reference to policy 2 or 3, there is justification for proposed development to be in a rural location. On balance, it's acceptable given that the fact that the application site is located effectively on the edge of Kilmarnock settlement boundary and isn't in a remote or isolated location. And therefore, we're happy with the proposed location. In terms of policy NE10, it doesn't comply fully with NE10, given that there is some loss of prime quality agricultural land. But in this instance, the quantitative loss is not deemed to represent such an unacceptable amount to warrant refusal of the application, and the loss of the area would not have significant implications in terms of local agriculture. Similar to the assessment of LDP2, the proposal meets most of the detailed policies of the MPF 4, and overall, in terms of the assessment of the application, the two documents are very similar in scope. In conclusion, the proposal would result in the creation of a state-of-the-art training facility, an academy facility for the football club, and is supported. The state-of-the-art facilities would create jobs, given there is a need to maintain, enhance and secure the facility, as well as assist in the day-to-day activities of the club. Facility will also bring to some extent people into Kilmarnock Town Centre who may choose to utilise the facilities available and the services available in the town. That will overall bring benefits as well. The proposal will provide community benefits as detailed in the report, and the proposal seeks to maintain existing trees, hedgerows and vegetation, and also provide additional planting for landscaping and biodiversity gain, and a lot of this is specified on your planning conditions. Therefore, recommended that the application be approved subject to the conditions within Appendix 1 of your report. And back to yourself, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions? No questions? Are we ready to move to determination?
We accept it.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for Councillor Crawford? Councillor Friel, thank you. Okay. We're all in agreement, no one otherwise minded. Okay, that's that accepted. Thank you very much.
Just to confirm as before that the application has been approved subject to the conditions detailed in the appendix to the report. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We're now on to item number 5, and it's planning application number 23/0004/S36 It's the application for section 36 for battery energy storage system with maximum installed capacity of 500 megawatts and associated works at Kilmarnock South Substation, Brayhead Farm, Treeswood Head Road, Kilmarnock by Isaac Weil. And that starts at pages 117 to 172. And it's David Wilson. Thank you, David.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning. The purpose of this report is to present a consultation under Section 36 of the Electricity Act for consideration by the Planning Committee. The application site is located in agricultural land, approximately 2 kilometres south east of Kilmarnock, near to the existing Kilmarnock South electricity substation off the C53 public road. The development comprises a 500 megawatt battery energy storage system, a BESS, and comprises of a range of infrastructure, including 228 containerised battery units, transformers, electrical bus bars, new and upgraded access track and supporting works for an anticipated operational period of 40 years, all as set out at paragraphs 10 to 17 of the papers. Consultation responses are set out at paragraphs 18 to 29, noting that no consultee has raised an objection, subject to use of appropriate conditions to control various matters. As this is a Section 36 application, consultation is undertaken with the Scottish Government, with the responses that have been seen by the Planning Authority summarised at paragraphs 30 to 34. Likewise, representations from third parties are directed to the Scottish Government, and at this time, final numbers and details of those objections have not been provided by the Energy Consents Unit, although the Planning Authority is aware that a number of objections have been made. Prior to moving on to the assessment of the development, I'll share my screen and take you through some of the details. You bear with me. This slide is just showing the site location and context. Kilmarnock to the north and northwest, approximately 2 kilometres. The site access linking onto the C53 public road. The location plan showing Brayhead Farm immediately north of the main part of the site and the access road coming off the C53 along the existing access before turning towards the application site, which is through an area of field in the top corner, the top right hand corner of the slide. This is the proposed layout plan showing the main body of the batteries across the central part of the site, electrical infrastructure to the eastern area, and the sustainable urban drainage system and planting along the south-western to south-eastern boundaries. Slide is showing the elevations of the development, showing the various site infrastructure. This doesn't take account of site levels, which I'll just come on to, but essentially showing the various components, predominantly the battery energy storage cells, which are containerised units, but with some electrical infrastructure up to 12 metres high and retaining a noise baffling and containment wall around certain parts of the infrastructure, which would be 10 metres high on the southeastern part of the site. This is the site levels plan, noting that the site is a gentle fall from northwest to southeast, and the sections are through that, which I'll just come on to now. So these slides are showing the existing and proposed sections, highlighting that some cut and fill will be required across the site, generally to create 2 benches of more level ground, albeit retaining a gentle gradient continuing to fall towards the southeast, which is on the right-hand side of the picture. And this shows the locations of the cut and fill across the site. This image is probably more visually obvious picture where the cut and fill will take place. So the pink, brown and green areas are largely areas of cut, with light green and blues being the areas of fill, noting that the main cut areas are to the northwest and fill towards the southeast to increase the levels in that corner. This slide moves on to proposed site landscaping, focusing these works around the southwest and southeast, including areas of wet woodland planting, new trees, grassland, scrub and wildflower. And this slide shows the commitment to plant new hedgerow to be planting along the site access track where some existing hedging requires to be removed for road access widening. The dark pink represents new hedging with retained hedging in light pink. You can see in the area in the top right just where the existing track is left to access the site, and that's a new area track that will be formed through an agricultural field. Moving on to landscape and visual matters, this is a zone of theoretical visibility for the development, noting that most impact is within 3 kilometres, which is the dotted line, although intermittent, and that does not include the screening effects from existing buildings and vegetation, which would further reduce potential visibility. This is the existing view from the southeast, approximately 735 metres from the development, near to Low Daller's house and slightly north of the nearest public road. And that is the proposed view, showing the development in the centre of the view after a number of years of vegetation maturity. So that will show a bit of vegetation planting. You'll notice just in going between the two, there is not a significant increase, and it doesn't break the ridge height of the land beyond. This is a view from the corner of the Brayhead farmyard on the very edge of the development itself, which is in the dogleg section of the development site. And showing the bays in that view, which is inevitable, and this is right adjacent to the edge of the site. These are the highest structures proposed as part of the development, between 10 and 12 metres high here. This slide is a view from the site entrance on the C53, showing the existing view with general extent of the scheme shown as a dotted line on the upper left corner. We don't have a photo montage from here, but that places it in the context of the surrounding landscape and various infrastructure and development that's within this view. Turning now to some photos, this slide shows the C53 from the site access looking towards Kilmarnock to the north and to the south, with the next one that's shown set back and looking towards the site entrance. So this site entrance would be upgraded and access track widened to 5 metres minimal across its entire length. These slides take you along the access track. There are 3 properties located just off this track, with the access track to be upgraded and moving round these properties on the left-hand side. It's just as it comes round. And then that road just turns at the side of that house and continues on up towards the farm before turning off towards the site itself. These slides are taken from within the site itself, just next to where the committee site visit took place yesterday. So showing across the site with the agricultural land, the gently sloping levels going from right down to the left. Just looking across the site there. The hedging just in the middle ground there requires to be removed to facilitate the development. So that is an area of lost hedgerow, so that will come out. Showing the battery and the Kilmarnock South substation just beyond it with the pylons, and the Zenobia development, the existing battery energy site is under construction, and that is behind the tree bank immediately in front. And that is the dogleg section that just wraps around the back of the farm, where the main electrical infrastructure, the higher components would be located. This is a final slide, just showing the cumulative situation in the surrounding area. These are the other battery energy sites. The Kilmarnock South base in the centre of the site is under construction by Zenobia, with another approximately 12 to 18 months until completion, but with the main peak construction period having now largely passed. The Cumsiskin development on the south is in South Ayrshire. That has that's consent, section 36 consent, but is not yet commenced. The Inchbean development to the northwest is under a live consultation. Will be presented to committee in the near future. And the Low Dallers farm development has undergone an EIA screening. However, no further process or application has come forward, and that would not be expected in the immediate future. And if it does come forward, it would be expected to be a number of months or more than a year before that would come to us for consideration. Stop sharing my screen. Bear with me. So turning now to the assessment, whilst the development plan does not have primacy in section 36 developments, it is a useful and logical assessment tool, and that assessment is set out from paragraph 36 to 140. A range of other relevant material considerations are set out in paragraphs 141 to 160. The development represents a significant contribution to energy targets, and the principle of such development is strongly supported in the development plan and in energy policy generally. In addition, it is likely to represent a positive economic impact, primarily during the construction phase. Landscape and visual impacts are considered to be relatively limited, with significant effects focused within 1 to 2 kilometres, and NPF 4 notes that energy generation developments are likely to have some significant landscape and visual effects, but the localised effects are generally considered to be acceptable. The Council's landscape consultant agrees that significant effects are localised, but has criticised the quality of some of the applicant's landscape and visual information. It is agreed that the submissions in this respect could have been better. However, we consider that sufficient information is available to be able to reach the conclusions on significant effects. No property is considered to receive an overbearing visual impact. In respect of noise and cumulative noise impact, the Council's noise consultant has reviewed the applicant's submissions and considers that it would be no unacceptable impact. Cultural heritage impacts are limited and can be controlled by condition, and no unacceptable natural heritage or water environment impacts have been identified, and where such impacts do occur, they can be mitigated and controlled by planning condition. The main impact from this development is considered to be the construction stage traffic impact on the C53 and properties located off that road, as well as potential cumulative traffic effects. Significant consideration of these matters has been given within the report, noting that to facilitate the development, there will be an inevitable requirement to bring construction materials to the site. The applicant has sought to minimise this and is committed to a construction traffic management plan and has revised traffic figures to try to quantify the potential vehicle numbers and provide mitigation for this. This includes a CTMP that commits to a wide range of controlling measures, including speed limits and review and potential instalment of further passing places. Furthermore, they continue to try to minimise the requirement for material import by maximising their use of existing soils on site to achieve the necessary site levels. In addition, they have evaluated an alternative access from the east, from the A76. However, for various reasons, including road safety and water and natural heritage impacts, have considered this to be unviable and presenting a range of potential additional significant effects beyond that which the development currently proposes. And that is a position that the Planning Authority is in agreement on. As a standalone development, whilst the proposal will bring a level of disruption and impact during construction to those living along and using the C53, it is considered that through mitigation measures and careful control over final proposed vehicle numbers during the peak construction period in particular, through approval of the CTMP and monitoring enforcement thereafter, the impact from the development is not unacceptable. ARA have concluded in their consultation response that they have no objection, subject to a range of conditions that can be attached to any consent granted by the Scottish Government. However, where peak construction periods of different developments to overlap, it is likely that an unacceptable impact would occur from volume of vehicles and consequent impacts on amenity of those living in that area. When conditions have been discharged, the timing for commencement of the development is ordinarily in the hands of the developer, and as such there is no strategic control available after consent has been granted. To remove this risk, a planning condition has been advanced that would bring such control for the Braehead development to the Council, by giving the Council a sign-off in terms of when the development can commence if there are other developments under construction or about to commence and where peak periods could overlap. That condition wording is set out in paragraph 93 and in page 167. This approach has been used to remove such risk for wind farm developments on the Afton Road near New Cumnock, and as such it is an accepted method of control. Subject to the imposition of that condition by the Scottish Government, it is considered that no unacceptable cumulative traffic impact would take place, a view shared in the ARA consultation response. Legal and financial risk implications are set out paragraphs 162 to 167, noting that the applicant may be expected to enter into a legal agreement with the Council to secure a planning monitoring officer and a financial guarantee. The applicant has agreed to this and has already commenced discussions with the Council towards it. It is noted that should the Council raise an objection to development, this would likely trigger a public local inquiry, and participation in such a process would be necessary. Conclusions are set out paragraphs 170 to 179, noting that the principle of development and its contributions to targets should be given significant weight, and that furthermore the development presents a number of relatively limited environmental impacts on most matters, and which can be addressed by mitigation and measures secured through planning conditions. As already noted, traffic impacts during construction and potential cumulative traffic impacts are considered to be the most significant aspect of this proposal. However, subject to careful control through mitigation measures secured with planning condition and to the attachment of a cumulative traffic control planning condition, these impacts are considered to be capable of being mitigated to a level where they would not be unacceptable. In addition to the content of the report and in further review, the condition to control construction working hours should include an embargo on HGV movements on Saturdays, which would further protect residential amenity. The development is therefore considered to largely comply with the development plan and other material considerations. As such, the recommendation is to respond to the consultation request through submission of this report to the Scottish Government, raising no objections subject to the attachment of conditions on various matters as set out from page 167 to page 170, the detail of which is to be agreed by the Planning Authority. The attachment of the specific cumulative traffic control condition set out in this paper, and to also include no Saturday HGV deliveries, and the conclusion of a legal agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very comprehensive paper. Over to members for any questions or clarification. See nothing online. Oh, Councillor Lennox.
Thanks, Chair. Again, just with reference to paragraphs 93 and 94 within the report, I welcome the fact that we've taken on board residents' concerns about the likely cumulative impact of this.
Councillor Lennox, you're frozen. I don't know if you can hear me. I know you were having trouble earlier with connectivity. Okay, members, we'll just give Councillor Lennox a moment to see if we can get him back online. David, that was paragraph 93 you was referring to. Councillor Lennox. Okay, Councillor Friel has a comment.
I believe what Councillor Lennox said is planning to say that he said to you yesterday on the site visit, so that you can almost presume what is going to come.
I think perhaps if we could expand on paragraph 93 then or re-summarise it, and hopefully we can get Willie back online for determination.
I think he's back.
Oh, Councillor Lennox, you're back. We missed your question. We got to paragraph 93 if you want to start again. Thank you.
As I said earlier, I'm having network issues this morning, so hopefully this will be workable. Can you still hear me okay?
We can.
I was just saying that I think as a responsible planning authority, I think we need to take cognizance of the strength of feeling among the local residents regarding the cumulative effect that this development will have on the minor roads in the vicinity, both in terms of the physical infrastructure and the volume of traffic. I'm expecting from a planning perspective that we'll be keeping a close eye on activities in this area so that any issues with compliance can be quickly identified and action taken, given what we've seen with the development next door. And also from a roads perspective, Ayrshire Roads Alliance need to take a stronger stance, in my opinion, in respect to ensuring that the developers are contributing and helping towards the maintenance and care.
Councillor Lennox, you've frozen again, so we're just going to pause for another minute. Thanks. Any other members have a question we can go to just now while we're waiting? Any observations? Okay, we'll just have to wait, members.
Am I back
Willie?
online again? I was getting
Thank
pinged
you.
there again.
I think you got to the point about ARA being more robust. Thank you.
Thanks. Sorry about that. I was saying that the Ayrshire Roads Alliance, I think, need to be a bit more stringent in terms of keeping on top of some of the roads in that area, because there's considerable damage been done. The passing places that were installed last year, for example, they're in a terrible state already, and some of them are no longer fit for purpose. Quite a few notes here that I wanted to make a point on, but I think the various developers also have a bigger responsibility to collaborate with one another to identify a dedicated new route into the substation for the A76. And I'm pretty sure that the cost of such a solution, if shared across the various developers, would be a drop in the ocean when it's compared to the profits that these companies are likely to be made out of the lifespan of their respective projects. And I appreciate, Chair, that these points may not be material considerations in relation to the application, but having attended several of the public meetings hosted by the developer of the site currently under construction, and the one hosted last week by the developer, I fully appreciate that the strength of feeling shown by locals who feel that they've been badly let down by the council and by Ayrshire Roads Alliance. I think we have a responsibility to further address their concerns where possible and try to minimise any impact that these developments will have on the health and well-being of the daily lives of our residents. So I'm just hoping that we can take all that into consideration, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you for your observations, Councillor Lennox. David, do you wish to respond? And Jane Corrie from ARA, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I suppose it's maybe just as a summary of the experience that has taken place and what we're taking into this development. So the Zenobia development was the first to be consented and start construction. It did have a construction traffic management plan. All the details were agreed through the planning conditions. And for a period of 2 months, they significantly reached their traffic management plan by running a lot more HGVs for those 2 months. That did come to light. We did bring that to their attention. They did stop with the threat of enforcement action. It potentially could have taken place. And since then, numbers have dropped, and I think control is much more robust. We've built in additional controls to the construction traffic management plan for the developer there to evidence to us that they're actually complying with the numbers. So they're required to send us figures for the number of HGVs coming into their site. They have to control that through their site gate anyway as part of their site security. So that helps us to stay on top of the compliance. As a general basis, the planning monitoring officer has been on that site, and other than that breach of the traffic management plan for those 2 months, the developers actually ran a very compliant site across a whole range of their commitments. So other than that one period, which we fully acknowledge was entirely unacceptable and did represent an unacceptable impact, other than that, the Zenobia site is running the way it should do. Obviously, the learning experience from that 2-month period is now that we have probably a more robust approach to compliance monitoring of that matter. I have enforcement officers that do go out and look, as well as the planning monitoring officer, and we are monitoring that. So that experience has been brought and will be brought into any discharge of conditions through the Braehead development, including looking at maximum traffic numbers and HGVs. so that we maintain a reasonable balance between allowing the development to be constructed whilst maintaining a reasonable residential amenity. It's not to say that there won't be disruption and some impact to residents. That will be inevitable, but we think with the controls that it will be sufficient to bring it down to acceptable levels. On the alternative access, and the developers speaking to each other. The meeting that was held and put together by council officials in mid-May brought the developers together, and I believe that there is more conversations taking place between them now. They're more aware of what each other is doing. And for the Braehead developer in particular, and any further one that comes in front of us with the cumulative condition that we are proposing to control traffic, they'll have to keep in close contact with other developers because that will potentially affect their own construction schedule. So that is going to be inbuilt in terms of further conversations between them. On the point of the alternative access, the Braehead developer was asked to investigate that. It's not actually part of their application, but they did take that away and they came back with a paper which, in their view, discounted the route that was suggested to them by local people on the basis of road safety at the A76, as well as potential environmental impacts and water impacts because they have to cross the Cessnock water. That would involve culverting the Cessnock water, which is generally something that we wouldn't like to see happen if there is an alternative. So it wasn't a case that the alternative is a benign route that could easily take different pressures away. It presents its own issues in itself, and the applicant has basically said that they don't think that works. And in our view on that review, we think that the impacts would be unacceptable as well. In addition, when you look at the actual purpose of that, if it's for a cumulative effect, the only development that really benefits from the alternative access is Braehead itself, with the potential for the small Inchbean development to potentially benefit from that. But that would also run into that developer having to go into negotiations with different landowners to achieve that access. So it doesn't solve the whole cumulative picture. Zenobie's already ahead there and are putting their site in the Camsiskin development in South Ayrshire only uses the first stretch of the C53. So for the vast majority of the C53, Camsiskin doesn't use that route. So subject to the controls that we've put forward and the learning experiences that we've had from the Zenobie development, we think that this can be sufficiently controlled to protect amenity, and that's what the recommendation is that's in front of you.
Thank you, David. Jane?
Thank you, Chair. So ARA, as part of the construction traffic management plan for the existing development, the developers are required to meet ARA representatives on a monthly basis to look at any damage done to the road and correct any defects, and those monthly inspections are taking place with our road inspector, and at present Zenobie are taking account of any defects that are identified during those inspections and are making those good and repairing those. A similar process will be put in place with this new development through the construction traffic management plan, and we will also be looking at the passing places that are there at the moment and identifying whether there's any need to extend those or possibly even create one or two more of those, or some bend widening as well within the public road boundary. That will be controlled as part of the construction traffic management plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Councillor Lennox, do you wish to come back in? Are you okay with that?
No, maybe just for the Ayrshire Roads Alliance, and thanks for that update, Jane, but maybe you and I need to take a wee site visit round that road just to have a look and see whether some of those that remedial work's actually getting done, because it was evident to me yesterday that there's definitely work needing done there that hasn't been done for a while. So.
Okay, thank you. If that's it, is there any more comments? Any questions? We are being asked to form an opinion. We are the consultee on this. So if I can take you to page 117, paragraph 2, with recommendations. Are we agreed?
Just to add to
Okay, just one moment. Thank you. That's with the addition of no HGV vehicles on the Saturday. Are we all in agreement?
Agreed.
Anyone agreed? Thank you very much online. Okay.
Confirmation, the proposed consultation response has been agreed, which is not to object, subject to very clearly proposed and recommended conditioning that we would invite the ECU and Scottish ministers to attach should they determine to consent the application, and the council's default position is should those conditions not be applied, then our default position would be one of objection to the application should the ECU or Scottish ministers not see fit to apply all conditions proposed around the traffic, which would include the phasing of construction so that no two sites are in construction at the same time to manage the flows, and also, as you've heard specifically for this one, no HGV traffic on a Saturday or Sunday to give the residents some respite. And should that not be accepted by the determining body, then it could lead to or translate into an objection from the council.
Okay, thank you, members. I appreciate this is a long morning. We're just going to go straight into the last item, if that's okay with everybody. Nobody needing a break. Okay, straight into item number 6, and it's the planning application number 24/0011/AMC PPP, and it's approval of matters specified in condition 3, that's site details, condition 6, design and setting, condition 8, drainage, and condition 13, earthworks of planning consent 10/0917/PPP as extended by 18/0561/PP for residential development of 134 dwellings, substitutions of house types from planning consent 22/0005/AM CPPP. And that's at North Craig Farm, Glasgow Road, Kilmarnock, East Ayrshire. And that's Mr. Tony Lynch of Taylor Wimpey. And that's on pages 173. And that's Fiona. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application site forms part of the overall North Craig residential land release with a live planning permission for residential development at the very north of Kilmarnock. There is quite a significant planning history for the site, and that's outlined in paragraph 4 of your papers. What we effectively have today is an application to change the house types for this proposal based on what we approved last year for Barrett, because there has been a land sale from Barrett to Wimpey to Taylor Wimpey. The overall house numbers stay the same, and its proposed materials and layout are slightly different just to bring in the applicant's housing product. I'll show you some slides, and hopefully that will give you a bit of context. So it's this phase in here, members. We have given consent to the overall phasing in North Craig. These phases are built out here, and this phase is the current phase where Wimpey wish to come in and build their product. So this plan doesn't really show you anything, members, but just show you the red line site in relation to what's on the OS setting for at the moment. This is the housing layout. It is very similar to what was consented for Barrett Homes. We have access here into the site. We have a frontage. We have the site leading us round. We did have some changes to the proposed layout, and I'll just be able to explain those to you in a second. But you can see that the layout is very similar to the Barrett product. The layout shows landscaping up here. We have the standoff distance up here for the water main. We have gone through discussions with gas networks. We're happy with it. We have the play area in here, and there is footpath connectivity to the earlier phase, which is already built out in here. A couple of house type plans for you, members, just to show you what Wimpey are proposing. We have a mix of detached, semi-detached and terrace properties. This is the landscaping layout. It's actually superseded, but the reason I wanted to show you it, members, was this little sort of courtyard area in here. We actually had that taken out, members, because we felt that was introducing a bit of backland development, wasn't giving them frontage to be part of the street scene, etc. So we had that taken out. We've also had quite lengthy discussions with Wimpey about trying to green the site up a little bit more. So we have conditions about hedgerows being planted in front gardens. This site's right next to the residential, to the countryside. So we've actually had some further improvements to the landscaping scheme done. I don't have an up-to-date landscaping scheme, but I just wanted to show you that, members, just to let you know that that was what the previous layout was. Here, members, you can just see the local development plan, and you can see that in sort of the orangey colour that it's part of a development opportunity site. And I've just realised I forgot to put that onto a slideshow for you, so I do apologise. Just some photographs of the residential development and the residential site, members. Overall North Craigs. This is the area where the play area is, members, that will take you in with footpath connectivity from phase to phase. Generally looking north. Oh, just I think I went through a slide there. Just generally showing you that the housing roundabout, members, and that's the end of the presentation there. So we have no issues raised through the consultation process that would warrant refusal, and we've received no letters of objection. Obviously, as we've discussed previously, the Planning Scotland Act requires that we make decisions in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise, and the development plan currently comprises the newly adopted local development plan for 24 and MPF 4. The proposal seeks to effectively remix the housing product that's offered on site. The road layout will remain as previously approved under the earlier application granted to Barrett Homes, and there's minor alterations to accommodate the new housing types. The houses proposed are of a suitable size and scale for the site and surrounding area. They'll be sited and orientated in a manner that will preserve the amenity of existing proposed residents in the North Craigs residential area. And there's a variation in materials, design and finishes to create interest within the estate, contributing towards a sense of place and identity. There is a shortfall in private open space at a significant proportion of the plots, but that's largely due to the change in method of calculating the private open space between the previous adopted LDP and the currently new adopted plan, with the application being submitted in the course of the change of documents earlier this year. The mitigation factors that are outlined in your report mean that we think it's appropriate to accept proposed provisions as a minor departure from policy with regard to private open space, and we have made significant gains in terms of landscaping and biodiversity with the greenery that we're in the hedging that we're going to put around front gardens to give a bit more of an identity and association with the rural area. Proposed layout is otherwise acceptable. Design and finishes, together with changes from the initial plans that have been requested by the planning service, will result in an appropriate design. The dwellings will be set within appropriate landscape setting, and with the further undertaking that I've referred to you about landscaping and greenery and biodiversity, we feel that the application can be supported. We therefore are concluding that the application is acceptable as a minor departure from the local development plan, and the application is with you with a recommendation to approve consent, but prior to the decision notice being released, the applicant either requires to pay the developer contribution upfront or conclude a minute of variation to the current legal agreement to ensure that it is paid in an appropriate date. And it's back to yourself, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Online we have Councillor Mackay.
Thank you very much. A couple of questions, Fiona, and a comment. Clearly, I'm glad that you've made the changes, which mean that there's not what you've described as backland development with the removal of the courtyard. That's genuinely to be welcomed. Of course, greening up the area is something that I would be fully supportive of. I'm just looking for some further details in terms of the hedging and also of that going forward. So again, sometimes residents move in and there is a tendency to make some changes. What are the restrictions on residents being able to do that going forward? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mackay. We do have planning conditions concerning the submission of a landscape framework for all areas of landscaping, communal areas, front garden boundaries, recreation open space and amenity open space, and we've included the details of the hedging to come in as part of that. As part of the conditions, we've also asked for details of implementation and phasing, and we've asked for a maintenance scheme as well to be given to us too, and all hedging and landscaping is to be maintained in accordance with the maintenance programme in perpetuity thereafter. So we feel that it's appropriately covered by conditions, and I hope that gives you a bit of comfort in that regard.
Thank you, Fiona. It does, but again, I'm thinking in terms of, I think the development that we had at Craig Hall on the left as you come into Kilmarnock. I know that we had similar conditions associated with that, which again would be something that was welcomed. But again, families come in perhaps with not a lot of horticulture experience, and what they experience, particularly if landscapers plant laurels, is that in the early part in the season, when the laurels are actually in bloom, yes, there are wasps attracted as part of the feeding cycle. That passes, but again, it raises concern for families, and I know that there is a tendency to remove that laurel hedging and to do replacements to that. So again, that's really why that I'm raising this, because that has been the experience that we've seen in other sites to date.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mackay. The one thing we could do is on page 198 of your papers under condition 1, there is the landscape maintenance programme that has to be given to us, and we could insert some text into that to say that the applicant has to give us details of how that will be carried forward effectively to future buyers. The easiest way, in my opinion, to do that would be to put that in the title of the property. So we could ask the applicant to give us that and maybe add in a text if you're willing to delegate that authority to myself to do when we're actually looking to put out the decision notice. And I can also draw it to the applicant's attention that we're expecting something along those lines, if at all possible, or at least some other comfort, equivalent comfort, that we will be able to control that matter going forward in the future. Councillor Mackay, do you want to come back in?
Yes, thank you. I think that's helpful if what we're looking to achieve here is to set out that we're looking for the development of ongoing greening and biodiversity. I think sort of having that is something that's important.
Thank you, Councillor Mackay. Sorry.
Not to, I think there's a more direct way as well, just at page 198, in terms of the wording of that condition. The condition reads, further condition 1, the approved landscaping framework shall be maintained thereafter in accordance with the approved landscape maintenance programme. I agree with Fiona that actually looking to the developer to build it into the title deeds gives a greater degree of protection. But if that were simply to read, shall be retained and maintained, then it's part of the planning condition, and the planning condition should be enforceable regardless of the onward sale of the house. The planning condition goes with the land. So if we actually create the condition to retain and maintain, then it would be a planning matter for anyone to remove the hedges, and they'd at least need to apply for a variation, and that would give a degree of control of the opportunity to say no. So perhaps I'd look to planning colleagues just whether or not, from a non-planning perspective, I'll offer this, whether or not shall be retained and maintained thereafter would actually give enough of an obligation that once it's installed, it doesn't just get taken out by the next owner, because if it's part of the conditioning, it goes with the land. It can also be reflected in the title deeds, but that would be a secondary protection rather than our sole protection. It would retain it as a planning enforcement matter, and people would be aware through their title conditions that if they want to remove any of the hedging or the landscaping, they would need to actually apply for a variation. If that's competent, we've not had the chance to have that discussion, but it might just strengthen the position.
If it's okay, if I can come in, I'm actually looking at condition 3, where it says the approved landscaping framework shall be maintained thereafter in accordance with the approved landscaping maintenance programme. So we can maybe add in the words in perpetuity. Would that help as well?
Well, either maintain, that's where I was putting in retained, so it's either should be retained and maintained or just maintained in perpetuity. That's the same thing. So yeah, I think we're agreed in the principle, and I'm happy with the better wording, which would be maintained in perpetuity. So it's not in the gift of any subsequent purchaser of any of these houses to remove it. They've been breach of the planning condition then, and the planning consent and by planning enforcement matter. But what we need is a developer to make sure purchasers are aware of that in the title deeds. So I suggest we have the title condition bit as well. Belt and braces.
Okay, that was 2 points of clarification to be added in. Councillor Mackay, are you content with that?
Yes, thank you. That's helpful.
Okay, thank you. Fiona, are you okay with that? Yep. Okay, members, any more questions? Okay, I think these are quite robust conditions that have been put in as well, and I think Councillor Mackay's suggestion to make them more robust was absolutely spot on. So if we can go to your recommendation And that's paragraph 2, page 173. Can we agree? Right, all agreed. Thank you very much. And thank you for your attendance here today.
Thank you, Chair.
And just to confirm, that application has also been approved, subject to the conditions included and the additional wording that you heard there around condition 3, just to strengthen that and ensure that the landscaping is to be maintained in perpetuity. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, members.